Good morning. Today's lesson is on scientific notation. Let's take a look here at this first power of 10. This is 10 cubed, or 10 to the third power. And if we evaluate that, that means it's 10 times 10 times 10. So 10 times 10 is 100, and then 100 times 10 more is 1,000. So 10 cubed is 1,000. And we can also say that 10 cubed is 1 times 10 to the third. Remember, if we multiply anything times 1, that doesn't change our value. So 1 times 10 to the third is the same as 10 to the third power when we evaluate that, because we have a 1 and then we multiply it times 10 to the third. Now how about 10 to the negative second power? Well, remember, we need to start with that number 1, that whole number 1, and then we need to move our decimal 2 places to the left. Each time we move it to the left, we're actually dividing by 10, and that's good because this negative sign in front of my 2 says do the opposite of if I were to have a positive 2 there. And so instead of multiplying 10 times 10, I need to divide by 10. So here we have our whole number 1, we slid our decimal 2 places to the left, and so my answer for 10 to the negative second power is 0.01, or 1/100th. Remember, you can also write this in fraction. We won't be using fraction form today, we'll be working with decimals, using the decimal slide rule. Let's go ahead and try to evaluate this right here, 4 7/75 times 10 to the third power. The easiest way to do this is to rewrite 4 7/75. And since 10 to the third power is actually 1,000, you're multiplying 4.75 times 1,000. But the easiest way to multiply that times 1,000 is to actually look at this exponent, 3, and slide your decimal 3 places to the right since it is a positive 3. Now, notice that I have a blank spot here. In that blank spot, I need something to fill it so that I have a place value now, a place value holder. And so I'm going to put a 0 there. Now my value, when I evaluate 4 7/75 times 10 to the third power, I end up with 4,750 as my answer. Does that make sense? If I took 4 times 1,000, I would end up with 4,000. So it makes sense that my answer is 4,750. Now let's take a look at if I have a negative exponent. A negative exponent. Remember, when I have a positive exponent, I am multiplying. When I have a negative exponent, I'm actually dividing by a power of 10. So 10 to the negative fourth power. I'm going to rewrite my decimal here, 2.934, or 2 934 thousandths. And I'm going to use my decimal slide rule. Remember, up here, my exponent was positive, so I slid my decimal to the right. Down here, though, my exponent is negative, so I need to move my decimal to the left. 4 spaces. Let's show that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what goes in those empty waves but zeros? All right. Also notice in my answer, I take away the original decimal point. I have to. You can't have 2 decimals in one. Now, if I were to put these numbers into scientific notation, there's a rule about that. The rule is your number, as you can see on this slide, has to be greater than 1, but less than 10. greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. So in order to put this number here in scientific notation, I need to place my decimal in a place where it will make my number less than 10, but greater than or equal to 1. So I'm going to place my decimal right here. If I were to place my decimal at the front of it, my number would be less than 1. Remember, the rule is that it has to be greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. I also wouldn't want to place it here because then my whole number would be 37, and that's greater than 10. The rule states less than 10. So in order to write that original number in scientific notation, you would say 3.795462 times 10. Now, where was my original decimal? It was right here. How many places did I move it to get to here? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I moved it 6 places. All right, now let's take a look at this bottom example. If I have a number that's less than 1, then my exponent is going to end up being negative, right? Up here, we had a number when we started out that was greater than 1, so my exponent was positive. Down here, my exponent will be negative. In order to write this, I need to place my decimal in a new spot so that my number is greater than or equal to 1 but less than 10. So my new number is 1 59/100 times 10 to the negative, what power? 1, 2, 3. 10 to the negative third power. Let's go back to the board and try some problems.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.